that now. We've seen the pictures that are coming in and seeing what's happening in Abaco, and now very quickly the eastern end of Grand Bahama is going to be facing the same.
In September 2019, one of the most powerful storms in modern history made landfall in the Bahamas. Hurricane Dorian severely battered the islands of Abaco and Grand Bahama, destroying homes, businesses, infrastructure, and unfortunately claiming lives. Just a few short months later, our country saw its first case of COVID-19. But despite catastrophic destruction and devastation caused by Hurricane Dorian, as well as the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, we have been given the gift of opportunity. Opportunity to strategically rebuild our island and restructure the way we address disasters and emergency situations. It is my pleasure to present Rebuilding Grand Bahama documentary series. So I invite you to follow us through this series as we document our journey to restoration. This series tells our story of the rebuilding process in Grand Bahama, post-Dorian, as we rebuild homes, businesses, roads, but most importantly, we are rebuilding the lives of people. We know the many challenges Dorian presented and we faced on this island, but we remain strong and steadfast in our continuous journey to rebuild our economy, even in the midst of a pandemic called COVID-19. In this first episode, we are outlining the incentives given by the government to assist those affected by Hurricane Dorian.
A week after Dorian, the government of Bahamas got together and put in place what we call an exemption, an exigency order to allow persons to bring goods in that were lost and bring relief to persons who had damages. Those relief consists of vehicles, personal items, groceries, and building material and the like. Within a short time, folks took advantage of that. They were able to travel at the time, purchase their goods, replacement goods, and bring with them on the ferries and whatever vessels that come in to have those items brought in with the relief of duty, VAT, and the processing fee. We've seen enormous amount of goods coming in. Since then, persons have really took advantage of it. We see a tremendous amount of vehicles. We've seen persons who have lost household items, furniture, appliances. They're really taking advantage of it. The COVID-19 came into play. The ferries had stopped traveling and persons were not permitted to travel on board the vessels, so they used to have those goods shipped. Hence, those goods came in manifested, and definitely entry had to be placed in to acquire those goods and to have those goods landed. One of the good things about it is also that the same thing applied to the local merchants. They were able to advance the same relief and obtain the relief as if they were bringing it in from Florida or from abroad, because the local merchants, Kellys, and lumber companies and all of the goods that are purchased here locally, they were also able to get relief from the VAT, the duty, and the processing fee. So there was a system that the government put in place that brought total relief to the people of Grand Bahama.
quite a bit of residents here in Grand Bahama and also northern Bahamas, which includes Abaco. They have taken advantage of most of those tax relief efforts that the government has put in place. It's a marvelous thing to do, seeing that Grand Bahama, or this northern region, was so devastated in Hurricane Dorian or from Hurricane Dorian. They were able to put their lives back together and able to pursue to the rebuilding. We can see the coming back together of Grand Bahama in particular. We can see from all of this going forward, we can see a true picture of the revival or the rebounding of this whole community of Grand Bahama. People have taken advantage, and I encourage all of you, if you have not done so, please take advantage of it, because the opportunity is there for all of us.
The Department of Social Services is the agency that has certain specific responsibilities in regards to the preparation for and response to a natural disaster. Immediately after the hurricane, we were very much involved in terms of the assessment. In fact, it was our primary role to assess persons who would have suffered damages and losses as a result of the hurricane, and also to ensure that assistance is rendered to persons who were in need of it. We were responsible for caring for persons in the shelters even after the hurricane who had to remain there for any period of time. These needs assessments had to be completed and submitted to the appropriate agency so that long-term assistance could be obtained by these persons. And then our programs had to kick in, Hurricane Dorian related programs. We had rent assistance for persons who were displaced or lost their homes. There was assistance in replacing major appliances such as fridges, stoves, beds, and in the beginning, microwave ovens. And we had food assistance, as we normally have food assistance as a regular program, but that was that increased exponentially after the hurricane. So we had a tremendous amount of food assistance we had to render to persons who normally would not require food assistance and who suffered loss of jobs, loss of resources, etc. post-hurricane. Late February, early March of this year, the country, the world got hit with this COVID-19 pandemic. And even while we were still dealing with Hurricane Dorian assistance, we had to add another facet to the services that we rendered to the general public, and had to provide assistance, COVID-19 related assistance. There were categories of persons such as hospitality workers, etc., who immediately were impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. They lost their jobs, their circumstances rapidly deteriorated, and so we had to add programs that dealt with their needs. And those included food assistance up to a maximum of $400 per hospitality worker. We gave rent assistance to those persons as well, and emergency food. In Grand Bahama, we assisted some 29 applicants who were COVID-19 related who came and applied for food assistance. And there's some ongoing food assistance. And then emergency food assistance, we dealt with 43 persons and 86 applicants who applied for rental assistance as a result of COVID-19 specifically. You know, our agency is a generic agency. We render many other types of assistance apart from what we call our community support services: food, rent, utilities, etc. We are an agency that deals with child protection issues. I think you might appreciate that a disaster such as Hurricane Dorian, a pandemic such as COVID-19, can have impact on family members in terms of domestic violence, child abuse, etc. And so we've had to deal with those issues as well. We had to deal with issues of senior citizens who might have been displaced, persons who were social boarders, maybe in the hospital, and we had to find other placement for them because the hospital needs to have its beds for COVID-19 patients and other emergencies, etc. And so these disasters, both of them might be considered disasters, they had a profound impact on our nation and on the services rendered, and we have had to keep pace. We couldn't miss a step. We couldn't stop. This agency never closed, so it is an essential agency, so there was not one day when we could stay at home or all work from home. We had to be available the whole time, so we have been at it from immediately prior to Hurricane Dorian to the present, and we'll continue to render the assistance to the general public that they require. People are resilient, and I have no doubt that we are going to recover. We're going to recover, and we're going to learn some different ways of operating, of being, of looking after ourselves, of supporting other people. We're going to learn some different ways if we all stick to it. I want to encourage the general public and the communities of Grand Bahama. It's difficult now, I understand. Things are not the way that they used to be. And perhaps the time has come for us to acknowledge the fact that we are not going to be exactly the way we were before. That does not mean we're not going to be better. That means we have to be different. There are going to be some ways that we operate as a nation that are going to be 100% better than they were before.
While recovery is not an overnight process, we ought to be proud of the progress made to date. As a Grand Bahama native, and as Minister of State for Grand Bahama and Finance, I stand with every single resident in this beautiful, dynamic, resilient island. We will rebuild, as we have done before. We will recover, and we will prevail.